Good morning, class. So we are going to begin with getting a piece of paper out. We are going to be soon learning about the different densities of different liquids. And so I want you to make some observations of the different liquids when I tell you to observe them. And then I also want you to, at the end, write down your final observation. I want you to draw a picture of what your model looks like and what your different layers look like. And I want you to kind of draw an arrow of what those liquids may be. So if we have some that mix, we'll draw an arrow and we'll write which liquids of those are that they mix together. And at the end, we're going to write a conclusion sentence of what happened and why certain liquids mixed together and why certain liquids did not mix together. So that way we make sure that we have a full understanding of the different densities of liquids, okay? Good morning, class. This is Renee. I am going to be teaching physical science. We're going to be talking about the different properties of liquids. We're going to be going over if they float, if they sink, which ones stay on top of which levels, and we'll be doing it together. I personally have vegetable oil, olive oil, milk, vinegar, rubbing alcohol, peroxide, and then of course water. We're going to be going over which ones float, which ones sink. We have a clear bottle so that way we can pour these into it. We don't have to use all 7 that I have here, but this is just to get an idea of which ones are denser, which ones are not denser. We're going to start off with making some observations. Can we see anything that has some similarities, some differences? I'm gonna say, I'll give you some time to look at these. I'll move that one out of the way. Give you some time to look at these 4 to start. This is vinegar, alcohol, peroxide, and water. All right, so the first observation that I noticed was that they're all clear. So do we think as a class that this is going to make a difference, or that because they're all the same color that they're going to either mix or they're not going to, you won't be able to tell the difference between them? Do you think that they are all the same density just because of their color? All right, so keep those observations and thoughts in mind as we continue on about and seeing if they do or don't float. We have these last 3. Do we notice any observations, any similarities, any differences? Perfect. So with these 2 specifically, because they are both oils, do we see any differences with just those 2? I mean, yes, they're vegetable oil and then there's olive oil, but is there any color difference? Is there any thickness, density, anything that we can observe through these guys? All right. And then of course we have this odd man out, this white one. And of course that's milk. And we'll see what that does. So, does anybody have any suggestions on which one we want to start with? Olive oil? Perfect. All right, so we're gonna pour some olive oil in there. And then we'll go ahead and go to some alcohol. And let's make an observation as we pour it in there. So what did we notice as I poured the alcohol in with the olive oil? Kind of looked like they mixed at first, but now that we're looking at it, it does seem like that rubbing alcohol is staying on top and that olive oil is at the bottom. Now let's go to, let's do the vinegar. Let's see what this does. We'll let that settle for a second. So we do see the oil on top, and then it kind of looks like that vinegar and rubbing alcohol is now like a cloudy white color. It does look like they did mix together though, so you do gotta keep that in mind. So we'll go to maybe the milk next. Is anybody concerned about when we add the milk to any of these other liquids? Are we worried that it's gonna curdle or anything like that? Yeah, all right, well, let's see. So we'll mix these ones together. All right, so we are noticing that the oil is still on the top for the most part. And it does look like, I don't know if you guys can see or not, that it is kind of like chunky. So that could be the formation of the milk curdling. Yeah, you can see it right there. But as a whole, it seems like those last three mixed together and then the oil is still staying on top. All right. So now we might as well add the other oil. So we're gonna do the vegetable oil. Let's see what this does. All right, so it just makes it look like those two oils did mix together, but that as a whole, again, the olive oil, or the oils, is staying separate from the other liquids. So we'll do the water next. All right, so this is what we got. So we are seeing that I guess I'll ask, how many layers do we think are we seeing definely right now? So I'm seeing about 3. So there's like this clear area down here, this milky, foggy color, and then of course the oil. So that's what I'm seeing. And we're starting to see those chunks a little bit better in that white layer. And of course we know that's from the milk, so. And our last one is peroxide. Okay, so let's see. So it seems like we have this like clear, like foggy area. We have this milky area, and then we have the oil. So we see that. So my question I want you to think about real quick, I have two questions for you. Do we, one, think that depending on the different layers that we do we think that which order we put them in matters? We think that it could matter? Okay. And then do we also think that pouring them directly in, so that way they go through all of the layers, rather than like layering them, like going slow and letting them slowly go in, do we think that that affects them mixing together? We think possibly? Okay, so let's see. I'm going to set this aside. We are going to get some, I'm going to refill these real quick, and we're going to test that theory with if layering them affects them mixing. So we'll go slow as we add them rather than letting them go through all of their substances, and seeing if that is going to affect whether or not they mix or stay more separate and they layer better. Are we understanding the different levels of density though, and how the oil stayed on top, and why is it that the oil stayed on top? It did stay on top because it's the lightest. You are correct. And we're going to start with a fresh cup. We're going to do this in a small one because we're going to go really light on what substances we use. And the last one I gotta grab is the milk. I guess we'll leave that there. All right, so now we're gonna test whether or not layering them slowly matters. And we're also going to see if maybe different substances at different times is going to matter. So we're going to keep it almost the same by starting with some of the same ones, but we're also going to change up the layers as we go. So we started with oil. We're going to do olive oil first. The first layer. And then we're going to do, I think we did alcohol. All right. So what are we seeing now that we've gone slow and we didn't mix them? All right, good. So that was the alcohol and the olive oil. We'll do the peroxide next. Okay. Are we noticing anything? It does look like in the middle that there's like an air bubble. So we'll do that milk next. So we see that that sunk to the bottom, and I'll let you see it from the top too. see what that looks like. And then, so they do look like they're staying separate more. And it doesn't look like that milk's curdling yet. Let's do some more oil, do the vegetable oil this time. And yes, it still just looks like that oil is added to the bottom. You can still see that air bubble that we saw earlier. We'll do the vinegar next. And now we'll do our last one, the water. All right. So it does seem like we're still getting the same results. It doesn't look as chunky from the milk. You can still see it down there. But it seems like they didn't mix as much. We also don't have, so let's grab the other one. So we have just about the same. It's just a little bit clearer. We don't have like some of that foggy mixing between the layers. But again, I guess that we have some more or less like 2 layers here, and where you can see that there's 3 here. So do have that. So now that we've done it that way, do we know if there is a difference with going slow or just letting them mix themselves, like separate themselves as we pour it? Do we think that that affects it? I guess with these liquids that we have, it doesn't really affect it because we still have those same layers. We have the oil, we have that milk, and then we have this like clear area down at the bottom. It's kind of hard to see in this one. But so it's still, as a whole, we can still see that the different densities, they do matter because the oil still ended up on top. We still have the milk in the middle, and then more of those clear liquids like the water down at the bottom and stuff like that, and those water-based liquids. So we can still see that density is going to separate itself, whether we layer it slowly or whether we mix it and they go through all the layers and then they separate themselves. We do have some mixing in both from the different liquids, and that's going to be normal whether you go slow or whether you just mix it. But as a whole, you can still see the different levels, and that density is based on which liquids you have, oil, water, and again, you can change these. So if you want to go home and get some different liquids, like maybe honey or syrup, mouthwash, you can see all of those different liquids and see how they react with other liquids that you choose. And that way we can see if it does matter. And obviously we can see in the liquids that we chose that the oil's on top, the milk was water-based ones. So if you are curious on other liquids like the honey and the maple syrup or mouthwash or anything that you choose, you could do Gatorade, you could do coffee, any liquids that you can think of, and you can see how they are going to layer themselves based on their density. So that you can take that home and show your parents if you want about the different liquids that you choose. Now that we have finished with our different levels and different densities of liquids, I want you to now go have that piece of paper that we started with at the beginning, and I want you to draw that picture and write your conclusion and why you felt this way. So that way we make sure that we know that there was some understanding to why the different levels of liquids didn't mix, and so that way we know that we understand density as a whole and which liquids mixed together and which ones stayed on top, okay?